Good morning and welcome to News Conference. With us, the Honorable Loretta Sanchez, Democrat of Orange County, member of the United States House of Representatives. She's a senior member on the House Committee on Homeland Security, House Armed Services Committee, and is on the subcommittee on border security. Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about the border in a second, but let's first talk about what we've been seeing over the past several days. Give us your reaction with regard to what happened in Ukraine. Do you believe this is going to require a more assertive role by the United States and the Department of State in that region?
Well, certainly it's become pretty apparent that somebody needs to be an adult in the room. We had been hoping for a while that Europe would get together and would play the more prominent role, seeming as this is it's right on its doorstep. But I would believe now that not only will the Congress insist, but that the President of the United States must work on a more assertive role in this situation.
You see us brokering a peace initiative between Ukraine and Russia?
Well, I certainly will talk. We'll talk with President Putin, and we will talk with the...
Do you trust him?
Well, I don't know him personally, so that's a difficult thing for me to say. I would just say that I think he has overstepped the line when he went on into Crimea, obviously, and a sovereignty treaty that Russia had signed, that would belong to Ukraine. So I would say that the record on Putin is not a good one.
Let's move on to Israel. Do you support the incursion there into Gaza?
When I see these rockets continuing to hit into Tel Aviv and all areas of Israel, it is a deep concern. I was one of the people who put forward the funding for the Iron Dome, which is shooting most of these rockets out of the air. So I think that something must be needed in order to stop those rockets from coming in, and we have to stop it somehow. I would have hoped by now there would have been a good ceasefire. So if what it takes is boots on the ground, that might be the last recourse that the Israelis have.
Let's move on to border security and to the crisis at the border. You had a meeting with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus with President Obama this past week. What did you tell him?
As a caucus, our position is pretty straightforward. We believe that there were two issues we discussed. The issue of the Central American children coming across the border, and the broader issue of the fact that the Republicans have refused to really take up immigration reform in the House. And so on the first, we said we want to make sure that the children get their day in court. Even criminals, blatant criminals out here in the United States, get a day in court. So as a child, we have passed a law that says that they should go before a judge, and we hope that that would continue, and that would be faster than the almost 700 days it takes in most cases. On the second issue, the issue of the broader immigration reform, it's become pretty evident to us all, we've been working on this for a long time, that the Republicans, the House of Representatives, will not help us to move something forward. And we said to the President, as stingy as these Republicans have been, not even to bring this up for a vote, you have to be in the same intensity as bold, and we need you to help keep our families together here in the United States.
The President has suggested changing the law that you referred to. Well, let's go back on that. That's a 2008 law signed by President George W. Bush at the time, passed by bipartisan support in Congress. It did not anticipate tens of thousands of children being sent 1,000 miles from Central American countries to the United States. It was about sex trafficking for the most part. He wants it changed. You don't want it changed. Why not?
Because I believe that these children have a right to go before the judge and to tell their story. Now, their story may be, my parents are very poor, I'm very poor, there's no opportunity in my country. You know what? You're going back. But it also may be, listen, you know, my sister wouldn't go with one of the gang members and be his girlfriend, and therefore, you know, she was killed. My parents said I couldn't go into the gang, so my parents' house was burned down. In those particular conditions, I think any American would understand that it would be better to keep the child here if we could find a family member here, or if there would be some sort of a system that could actually hold them here for a while.
Is there any concern with your caucus regarding the number of children who've made the trip that we haven't seen? Because remember, Amnesty International, for clarity, Amnesty International not long ago said that there was a crisis at the southern Mexican border with rape and murder and kidnapping. We can only imagine, and there have been reports of bodies in the Rio Grande. So the argument is that by not sending them back, you're enticing more to come.
Well, the bigger issue is, how do we invest in these countries to get their economies back up and to get some of that security done? In the same way that we did with Plan Colombia, for example, in that country, where people couldn't even, it was 40 miles to the beach and they wouldn't even leave the capital city to go there because they'd be afraid to be raped or kidnapped or killed. And so what can we do to help these countries get their place under control so people don't have to leave? That's the first thing. The second thing is, what can we do to help Mexico secure its southern border?
Right, but is there a concern about the carnage on the trip up? And is there a worry that by not taking swifter action that the president is asking, you're going to ask for tens of thousands of more children to make that trek?
Well, first of all, I would say that the majority of the people coming across are not children, they're adults, and certainly they are being deported and they are being sent back. So that's sending a message. The second thing is, we are working with those Central American countries to get the message out. Don't send your kid up. It's very dangerous, and oh, by the way, they're going to be sent back. I mean, that's really the reality. The majority of those children most likely will be sent back. The only reason they're not right now is that they're not getting their day in court. It's a 700-day sort of a system. One of the things the president wants to do with the money he's asked for is to bring that down, get justices in there, get people to work the system, amplify the system so that people can have their judgment within a month's time. When those children start to return, people will realize it's not an open border.
Republicans have argued that there needs to be greater border security. You've said, if I understand correctly, that there's nothing wrong with the border.
Look, I was the chairman of the border committee when we controlled the House of Representatives, we Democrats. I have sat on that Homeland Security Committee since its inception after 9/11. We have gone from about 5,000 Border Patrol to almost 23,000 Border Patrols in just a few years, in less than a decade. We have built fences, over 700 miles of fence. And the fact that when these children or these people are coming over, we are apprehending them. So if you think about it, it's zero people getting through the system. The net is the fact that we're apprehending them. So it's not about border security anymore. It's about how do we process these people and get them back to their country faster.
Loretta Sanchez, Democrat of Santa Ana, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.